Hi, Sean here from the Trusted Agent Podcast, and thank you for joining us on today's show, where each week we talk to experts both inside the industry and outside the real estate industry to gain their unique perspectives on what they believe real estate agents can do to build their credibility, efficiencies, and connections with others. A huge shout out to our sponsor, Rezo Real Estate Sales Online, who's absolutely revolutionizing how real estate agents deal with prospective buyers and vendors. Their online platform that manages the offers and acceptance process is simple, easy to use, giving time back to the agents so they can do what they do best. All right, so stick with me and let's see who today's guest on the show is. Hi, everyone. Sean here from the Trusted Agent Podcast, and thanks so much for joining us today. I am joined by an old friend, Terry Gray from Think Gray, which is a behavioral coaching practice based out of here, Sydney, but I understand is going national. So Terry, great to see you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, it's great to be here and really happy that you've invited me on here. Always love the opportunity to speak.
I know that, but I was really excited about getting you on board. And now our history goes back a bit. And I'm just trying to do some very quick math. I'm thinking it's about 8 to 9 years ago when you came into an organization. I was managing a sales team, and we had our leadership team, executive leadership team, all in the office. And you came in and you were trying to solve the problem. You're representing PEP Worldwide, which is Personal Efficiency Program worldwide. Yep. And you came in and you spent a couple of days with us and really challenged our business and why we do things the way we do and how we do it. So can you just give our viewers and listeners a bit of a background on who you are, what you're all about, and a bit of your experience and what brings you to here today?
Sure. Well, I am from Yorkshire. So most of my clients have to listen in Yorkshire because I can't change my accent. And originally in Yorkshire, I worked for quite a few organizations in the UK, one in particular called the Yorkshire Bank, which no longer exists, unfortunately, but in its heyday was breaking records for performance in banking worldwide for about 11 years consecutively. The proudest part of it is the best part of that business was its people. And it had the greatest loyalty of its people and the greatest loyalty of customers of any bank in the world at the time.
Wow.
And that was established really by how it trained its people and how it treated its people and the trust that it built up between its people and its customers. And so I learned an awful lot from that. And then from there, I came over to Australia, worked for quite a few organizations in Australia at different levels, and realized that all I've ever done is coach people. I have no particular singular skill, as it were, but all I've ever done is coach people. So I thought I'd give that a try. And that was 18 years ago. And I've never had so much fun earning money in my life since. It's been a great experience. So I am a behavioral coach. And you mentioned PEP or PEP, as it's affectionately known worldwide. And it's essentially about personal efficiency and principles and techniques, but fundamentally it's about behavior. And that's where I come from. So it's looking at how I can help people behave with more congruity, with more integrity, more consistency, because that's what people really look at. They look for consistency.
Yeah.
And I help people to do that. And really, it's really about creating the conditions for flourishing. And if you're not ready to flourish, the behavioral coaching practice known as Think Gray also has psychotherapy involved. So my daughter runs a psychotherapy practice. So if you're not ready to flourish, she'll help you get ready and I'll help you flourish.
That sounds awesome. I love that you've teamed up with your daughter as well to really round out the opportunity that Think Gray can bring to small, medium, and large organizations. Now, for our viewers and listeners, you might be wondering, so what does behavioral coaching practice or an expert have to do with building trust? Well, the Trusted Agent Podcast is all about helping agents build greater credibility, efficiencies in organization, and connection with others. And I think that efficiency in organization tends to get overlooked. In fact, when we look at some of the highest performing agents, they have great systems, they have great processes. But your background with when we worked together was the personal efficiency program with PEP Worldwide, and you challenged us so bad. I mean, I know some people that are still rocking in the corner whenever I mention your name. I'll give one example for our viewers and listeners. I distinctly remember it like it was yesterday, even though it's about 8 or 9 years ago. And this was before the digital age really took off. But Terry's standing at my desk and he's asking me to explain, the workflows of papers on my desk. And I had this filing system and a tray, and there's all these bits of paper in there. I just collect paper on my desk at the moment. I have 4 bits of paper right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is breaking Terry's heart, but they're actually my notes for today. But I remember when he was standing there going, what are you doing with this? Why do you have it? What are you going to do with it? And he wouldn't let me put it down. I had to do something with it. And I either had to diarize it, put it away, file it, or dump it all together. But it was so good because it actually really brought focus a bit to me about what am I trying to do in this moment holding this item. Can you just give our listeners and viewers a bit of an understanding of that particular exercise and what you're hoping to achieve?
Yeah, haste makes waste. And that, I think, is a phrase I'm continuously using at the moment. And when we're trying to build a brand, either internally or externally, when we're trying to build relationships, we often get focused on being nice or being fast or being something, rather than thinking about our particular purpose in the moment. And we often get caught up in trying to control everything by making sure it's near me all the time. So those are the two parts of that, if you want: haste and then trying to keep control. It's all about agency in a behavioral sense, but we lack purpose. So what we're trying to do, what I try to do in my coaching practice, in fact, it reminds me, in the early days of this coaching practice, people say, oh, so, what's a behavioral coach? And I used to say, well, ask stupid questions that you don't want to answer.
Yeah.
And they really are. They're very simple questions, but you don't want to answer them because you will have to realize that you might be doing something that's not quite right. And so my job as a coach is to help you see that what you're doing feels like it's what you should be doing, but in actual fact, it's not achieving anything. Mm-hmm. So when you were picking up your pieces of paper, it feels like I'm doing something with it, but actually you're not making any choice whatsoever. And therefore it's going to go back where you found it and wait until later. And you may remember me asking you, how do you spell later? And it's Never.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what tends to happen. So my questions were designed to just push you to say, no, make a choice, make a decision. Choices are hard, but make a choice. You'll feel more in control. And once you put it into your system, you start to rely on your system. You can trust your system because it's reliable. Then you'll start to move work on, and you will not be hasty, but you will be faster.
And we see this now, even now that we've moved into the digital age. Instead of pieces of paper, we see it people's inboxes and emails and so forth as well.
Yeah. Well, again, I whenever I'm working with groups or working with individuals, I still talk about paper. I say, look, imagine that inbox. How does it get represented in a real world? It's like a mailbox outside your house.
Yeah.
Imagine going to your mailbox outside your house and taking an envelope, ripping it open, reading it, deciding you don't need to do with it today, you're going to deal with it next Thursday, folding it back up, putting it back in the envelope, putting it back in the post box. You wouldn't do it. It's stupid.
Yeah.
If it's stupid in the physical world, it's stupid in the digital world. And it helps people as well, those sort of analogies like that, those real world analogies, it helps people to understand that the trap they've fallen into in a digital space is still a trap.
Yeah, I remember that email because you gave that analogy and I went, yeah, I understand that. And you said, you don't do it with bills. What do? You pull it out, you stick it on the fridge, or you put it with the other bills and you put a date on it and you put it in your calendar. You actually put steps in process. Why don't you do that with your emails? So I remember we started building this whole, how to manage email section as well. Are you dumping it? Are you diarizing it? Are you delegating it? Are you deleting it? That made real sense to me, and it did help my workflow so much. So what do you think it is about efficiency that links to trust, however?
Choices, really. Conscious, deliberate choices rather than unconscious choices that are traps. So unconsciously, let me come back to trust. Sorry, let me just come back to trust. Trust to me is all about affiliative achievement. And by that, I mean two things: affiliation and achievement. Affiliation means we're in this together. We've got shared goals. I'm not self-interested. I'm not just in this for the commission or the sale. An achievement is all about being reliably making progress towards those shared goals. So I've got to do it in a reliable, credible manner to move towards those goals. So if that's trust, then what choices am I making? And am I making them deliberately, or am I making them unconsciously? So we fall into this trap of thinking, okay, affiliation, I need to be your friend. Friends are nice, so I'm not going to tell you anything you don't want to hear. And if you ask me, can I have it to you by Monday? I'm going to say yes, without any deliberate thought about whether that's realistic, whether that's possible. Am I going to be able to get it to you by Monday at the right quality? And I'm hasty in making that promise because I'm trying to be affiliative. But when you attach achievement to it, then it should make you stop, pause, and reflect a little bit and say, I could get it to you by Monday. Give me a few hours to figure out whether that's realistic, to expect the right quality or the right timeliness or the right information or the right data to be available for Monday. And I'll confirm later today or tomorrow. That's a much better way of saying, okay, yeah, I'm recognizing that I want to get it there for you by Monday because that's what you seem to need. But I'm recognizing there might be some obstacles in the way, and I'm going to try and get them removed so that you can rely on me and you can rely on my promise, not making a false one to you. And then you know that I'm not just being sycophantic with my promises. I'm not just saying it to please you. I'm actually making a real promise. And that builds credibility and trust.
I think you just reminded me that you might have taught me something else in that session, in those sessions, which was when somebody asked that question, "Can you get it to me by Monday?" I instinctively now say, "Well, it depends," and they say, "Well, it depends on what?" Well, great. Now we have a conversation. It depends. Is time more important to you than quality? Or what is it that you want exactly? And that really opens up that transparency of what the expectations are of the other party.
Yeah, and it's great because when you ask those clarifying questions, you actually are saying to someone, I care about what you truly need rather than what you're just saying you need. I care about being clear on why you're asking about Monday. Why is Monday important to you? Because that might change the way I behave towards this. I'm not just on a surface level, just trying to agree with you for the sake of agreeing. So once you're asking me questions, there's a lovely phrase I use in my coaching practice all the time. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So being an expert is irrelevant if I don't think you care about me. And if you reflect on your life, your own personal life, you'll spot those moments where an expert's telling you something, but you're just not hearing it because you don't think they're telling you for the right reasons. They're telling you not because they care about you, but because of their self-interest.
Yeah, we tend to want to work with or buy from people that we like, know, and trust. And usually people that remind us of ourselves or someone we aspire to be, but ultimately, if they care about us, you can tell when somebody's just in it for themselves, and they could give you all the solutions in the world, and it could be exactly what you needed, but you don't want to, because
I mean, there are many examples of people going to one place to buy something, meeting a salesperson who tells them all the right information, but there's just an indication that this salesperson doesn't truly care about me. They haven't asked enough questions about me. They haven't clarified anything with me. So do I really believe they care about me? So I don't buy from that person, but I'll go somewhere else and get exactly the same thing from somebody who truly cares about me.
Yeah.
I remember one of the best salespeople in Xerox wrote a book. This is 30 years ago. Very easily readable book. I can't remember the title. I wish I could. I can't drag it out from my brain. It'll probably come up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll call you, Sean. But I remember him saying, and he had told a story about somebody selling a video recorder. You can tell how old this story is. Somebody selling a video recorder in a store. And there's a salesman who, when they greet the customer, what is it you're after? I need a new video recorder. We've got 3. One of these, and they've been told the law of 3s. Always give the customer 3, 1 to dispense with and 2 to choose from. So he starts talking about all the techniques and all the technical specifications of these 3 and why they should be fantastic for the customer. Customer doesn't buy. The other salesperson, customer walks in and he says, all right, you want a video recorder. So what are you going to do with it? Oh, well, I want to be able to record the soap opera while we're away on a 2 weeks holiday. Right. So you need a 2-week cycle and the timer to record over 2 weeks. How often is the soap? Oh, it's every day. Good. Okay. So you need long takes. And he specified really what the customer wanted. And he said, right, well, I've got 3 that would be fitting for you, given what you've told me. This one, this one, and this one. And he walks through the whole process of dispense with that. It's too expensive. Does your husband watch sports? Yes, he does. Does he freeze frame and slow-mo? Yeah, he likes that. Oh, well, this one does slow-mo, this one doesn't.
Yep.
I'll have that one, she says. Great. She packs it up, off she goes. And then he's got her phone number. So at 6 o'clock that night, he calls and says, have you set your video up yet? And she said, oh, well, yeah. And he said, you haven't got the timer working yet, have you? And anybody who's as old as me knows the timer on a video recording was always the worst thing. And he said, tell me, do you have a 5-year-old in the house? And she said, yeah, my son's 5. He said, ask him, he'll set it up. If he can't set it up, here's my number, call me back and I'll walk you through the steps. Now, that is caring about you. And it doesn't take a lot of effort, but that person became the greatest salesperson in Xerox.
Yeah, it's a great story. I love that.
It doesn't take a lot to ask a few questions and show that you care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose that having an agent that looks like they have it all together, I'm not talking about their life and so forth. I'm talking about that they're organized and they have systems and processes. That along with that would come an element of trust and confidence in that agent's ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the achievement orientation. So there are 3 elements to achievement in the work that I do. First one, it's production. You've got to actually produce things. You've got to produce outcomes. I've got to rely on you to be able to deliver what you say. The second one is preparation. I need to know that you're prepared. I need to know that you have the information that is appropriate for this relationship, this transaction, this question readily to hand. So are you organized enough to have the information readily to hand? And the third element is prevention. Have you thought about what could go wrong? Because if it can go wrong, it probably will go wrong. Mm. And do you have an if-then plan to counteract that? So if I call that doing the pre-mortem. So assume it all goes wrong. Yeah. What went wrong? It's easy to think about what could go wrong if you assume it's all gone wrong. And then once you've figured out what could go wrong, you can say, well, if that happens, then I will do this. If that happens, then I will do that. Or it might be, if I can download this document, this file, if I can have this data readily available on my phone, if that happens, I have a response.
Yeah.
And if you're organized and you've done the prep, then you'll make progress and you produce. And then people trust you because you've delivered on your achievement promises and you've been prepared. And you don't get flustered then because you always know there's something in the back pocket. You know, I remember I did tell you, you reminded me earlier I did tell you one of my little tricks as a facilitator, as a coach, that sometimes you get a question from the audience that flusters you.
Yep.
And my trigger word was fascinating.
Fascinating question.
Fascinating question. And it was a trigger. And I trained my brain that if I use the word fascinating, buy yourself 5 seconds, you need some answers.
Yeah.
And so if someone asked me an awkward question in open forum, then I would say, it's a fascinating question. Let's just consider that for a moment. And that buys me 10 seconds for my unconscious brain to say, here's the answer. Because I'd done my prep, I'd done my pre-mortem. And I was prepared for it. And if I get a question, I'll use fascinating. It'll buy me a few seconds. I can come up with a response. And sometimes the response is, Sean, what do you think about that question?
Yeah, that's right. My old trick was, you know what? Okay, interesting. Let me just grab a drink of water. Excellent. Explain. Expand. Yeah, great.
That's funny because I also I coach football, as in round ball played with feet. From Yorkshire, sorry.
Yeah.
And I coach coaches in football. And you've just triggered another little trick I taught a coach in football. I said, when you feel like shouting negatives, always have a bottle of water in your hand and take a drink, because you can't shout and swallow at the same time.
Maybe that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to shut up. Okay, so you talk about with Think Gray, you're really focusing on personal leadership as well. And when it comes to sales agents and or principals, directors of real estate agents, how important is it personal leadership first?
Oh, critical. It's the starting point. If you can't lead yourself, how can you lead a client? How can you lead a sale? How can you lead a transaction? How can you lead a relationship? You can't lead yourself. And personal leadership is really all about knowing, all right, number one, what's my purpose here in this moment? And that's a really telling question. And I'm not talking about grandiose purpose statements, but what is my true purpose here in this moment? How do I want this person to know? How do I want this person to feel right now? What do I want them to know right now? And what do I want them to do with what they know right now? What's my purpose?
Yeah.
And that's quite clarifying, because that can move us away from just telling people information and actually move us into being curious about what this person really needs. And that builds trust. And that shows that you care. And people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Mm-hmm. And so it's the first step. So personal leadership is understanding what's my purpose. Second thing about personal leadership is being sufficiently organized to be prepared, ready for prevention, to make progress. And that's all about your personal organizational state. Are you using the tools effectively? Are you confusing the purpose of the tools? You know, back to that inbox question that you brought up earlier. The inbox has a singular purpose. It's a place to collect stuff for processing. It's not a place to hold stuff. It's not a place to keep stuff. It's a place to collect stuff for processing. Yeah. And use it for that purpose. It will work well for you. Use it for a different purpose or 2 or 3 different purposes. It won't work so well for you. And it's the same thing. Look at your calendar. Your calendar is your work plan. Why use a calendar for your work plan? Because it has limitations. There are only 24 hours in a day. There are only 7 days in a week. You can't have 25. You can't have 8. We've all got the same. How am I going to use it? And let's actually make that calendar reflect my reality. So one of the real tricks of personal leadership is accepting reality. Yeah, I'm going to be in a car for half an hour to get from here to there. Don't expect myself to do any complex work in that time. Don't assume, if I rush or break the speed limit, I can do it in 15, because you're not likely to get there at all if you try that. Yeah. And it's about putting that other reality. You know, the phone's going to ring, hopefully, especially if you're in a relationship sales situation. You hope for the phone to ring. So allow time for the phone to ring. Don't plan as if nothing's going to happen, because something always happens. The fallacy of tomorrow. You know, have a look in your dictionary. and look up the word tomorrow. And in most dictionaries, it says a magical place that will somehow be better than today. It won't. It'll be just the same as today. If stuff happened today, it's going to happen tomorrow. Build that into your calendar. Make sure you're allowing contingency for stuff to go wrong, because it will, and things will happen.
I remember.
So don't make promises to work 8 solid hours back to back, because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I remember.
Don't make promises to go from one meeting to the next, because you're not going to go very well, because the first 10 minutes of the next meeting, your mind is still in the meeting before. And so on and so on. I could speak for an hour and a half, you know that, Sean, on this subject.
I was just about to say, I remember we did an exercise that wrote down all the facets of my role. And I encourage our listeners to do this as well, all the facets of the role and how much hours per week or per day, per month that you devote to that. And when you actually add them up over a month, I worked out that I had 31.8 hours of work more than what the month offered. So, and this is where the stress and anxiety for many people comes from, is that overwork. But when you started plotting down the big blocks or projects or thinking time or reading time or getting back to people time in your diary, you can really consolidate it and focus it. And suddenly you found like you had control. You didn't feel like you're juggling so many mental pieces of paper in your head.
Yeah, it's all about choice. I've mentioned that word before, but it is really all about choice. You can't choose what you can't see, right? So if you start using your calendar and putting everything into your calendar, not just what you want or your ideals or your big thing, but everything in there, reflect your reality, then you're making choice based on reality. You're not making choice based on some idealistic view of how the world could be if I was Superman and didn't get any interruptions and had no problems to deal with, which is nonsense. So make sure you're reflecting that reality, and then you're planning for a real tomorrow. And what you'll find is that things actually do move more smoothly towards the end goal, because you're keeping your promises, because people know they can rely on you, even though you say, I can't get it to you for Tuesday, but I can get it to you by Friday. People go, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And you build that reliability, you build that affiliative achievement as you go forward by doing that, by recognizing and accepting reality. And your calendar is a great way to give you visibility of your reality. So another way I've suggested to people, if they want to face reality, is use your calendar as a retrospective tool. So collect what happened. It's 10 o'clock on Tuesday. What am I doing right now? Right, it's 11 o'clock. What am I doing? What happened between 10 and 11? And that way you're collecting evidence, which you can use to craft an experiment next week to see if it's the same.
Yeah.
And if it is the same, you've given yourself a planning template. You can say, I need to allow 2 hours a day for stuff to happen that I can't see coming. I need to make sure that I am properly prepared for that showing, that I've got my boards, I've got my leaflets, I've got my information all readily available, all readily acceptable, and it's there in a go bag sort of situation, ready to go. I'm investing time in being prepared, not just spending time chasing.
Yeah.
I'm investing time in being prepared. And that builds credibility, not just with other people, but with yourself. It gives you confidence.
Yeah,
and
you don't have to think about it.
And with confidence, you can be relaxed. And it frees up your brain to actually do the real work. You're not anxious about what you might have forgotten, because you've done the investment in time to be prepared.
I love that.
Then you release your best self.
No, I love that, Terry. I think that's excellent. If you're prepared, it allows you to be relaxed. With relaxed, you actually come across more confident, because you're not stressing about the 1,000 things in your head, and it allows you to be more present in the moment to make those choices about what's your intent and your main objective in that exchange. And
you can consider your purpose. You know, when you're anxious, you don't think about purpose, you just think about defense. When you're anxious, it's all about, trying to look for threats and avoid them. But when you're relaxed, you're not concerned about those things. You're actually concerned with progress. You're actually concerned with the relationship. You're actually concerned with your true purpose.
I love it. Terry, so we got quite a few different elements in there. We got, be aware of your reality, to help yourself be better organized, be curious. Personal organization is essential, and being your choice and purpose versus defense. Is there any other points that you could offer our audience today into what are the one or two more things that they could do in terms of building greater credibility, efficiencies, organization, or connection with others, all ultimately leading back to trust?
Yeah, I would say from an efficiency point of view, it's continually experiment, but start to build a habit of spending at least some time a day, half an hour, being prepared, getting organized, making sure that I've got my go bag, that I've got everything organized. So it's readily to hand. It's all grouped together where it needs to be grouped together, and it's easily available and accessible to me at the drop of a hat. So build a routine of spending time doing that every day, and at least on a weekly basis, reflect, learn from your experience, and just get better. That would be a fundamental one.
Would you say it's first thing in the morning or last thing at the end of the day for prepare for the day ahead, or is it personal choice?
It's very much personal choice. So think about who you are. And that leads me to my second point, really. Take personal reflection and learn from it. Are you a morning person? Are you better reflecting in the afternoon? Are you someone who gets to the end of the day and just can't face investing more time in being prepared? If that's the case, do it first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
If in the morning you like to have a routine of getting into things and doing something that's productive first thing, okay, do it later in the day. Do it lunch. It doesn't matter when you do it. What matters is that you do it, and you do it in a way that suits you. And that's looking at yourself as well. And you can learn a lot from who you want to be. And just on that point, I could add in, if you want to be trusted, be trustworthy.
Yeah.
So what does trustworthy mean? Well, think about who you want to be worthy of people's trust. And the best way of doing that, I do another exercise in my coaching work with people, thinking about the best boss you've ever worked with. But let me put it into a different context. Ask yourself, who do I trust? Think about the people you trust. Think about, okay, what are the characteristics that make them trustworthy? You'll probably struggle to come up with more than 4.
Yeah.
Right? But write those 4 down. Write them in blue ink on a piece of paper. Then think about people you don't trust, that you really have a feeling of mistrust about. What are the characteristics that make them mistrustworthy or distrustworthy? What are the characteristics that make them the sort of person I really don't want to do any business with? And write those things. You'll probably find it very easy to come up with answers to that question. Write them in red ink. Then go back to the person you really trust and say, right, have you ever seen that person do any of those red behaviors ever? And the answer will be yes, I have. And what that tells you is those 3 or 4 behaviors that made you trust them will overcome any of those other normal human negative behaviors that we fall into from time to time. And that will tell you how to be the trustworthy person that you want to be. Pick up those 4 behaviors. Don't worry about the others. Do those 4 and do them well, and doing them in a way that suits you and that reflects who you really are. And that should work. Rather than try and take an expert's advice, or you should do this, or you should use your own experience, use your own belief systems, and develop your own plan. Experiment with it.
And that's going to allow you to be your authentic true self, because you're actually formulating that for yourself.
It's coming from you. It's not coming from a book. It's not coming from Terry Gray. It's coming from you. And if it's coming from you, people sense that. People recognize that. And you have authenticity. And it has integrity because it's got consistency and it's predictable because it's you. You're not trying to put something on. The suit doesn't do it for you. The words won't do it for you. The authentic self is what people look for. And one of the key readings of mine is people are always looking for meaning in other people. So they will see your facial expression and they'll apply meaning to it. They will hear the tone of your voice. They will apply meaning to it. They'll look at what you're doing. They'll apply meaning to it. The meaning they apply to it comes from your authentic self. It doesn't come from the words you use, the suit, the hairstyle, anything else. It comes from being authentic. Do you look calm? Do you look authentic? Do you sound authentic? Are you consistent? Are you predictable? That's what they want. And you'll get that from looking at how you want to be and then being that person. Because your behavior speaks so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying.
Now, was that you or Mark Twain?
I think it was Mark Twain. I think if it's not on Google as Mark Twain, I'll claim it. But no, it's Mark. I'm sure it's Mark Twain that came with your behavior speaks so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. And that hits me so deeply, that one, because it reminds me that it's not the words you use, it's how you behave that builds trust.
Yeah. And I think that's a real risk for a lot of agents out there as well, because they, for whatever beliefs that they have, maybe they want to be perceived as a certain person, or maybe they feel they need to act as a certain person. But I think that's a real risk for many people out there. Terry, you have delivered some awesome truth bombs to us today. And I hope you've given our audience several moments where they could just pause and reflect and go, yeah, maybe I could fine tune it or work in this area. How do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you or Think Gray? And I know you got some exciting things coming up and partnering with your daughter as well, psychotherapist. How do people reach out to you?
Firstly, keep a lookout for Think Gray in all your social media, LinkedIn, YouTube stuff. We are going to be launching things very soon that are practical, I hope. They're not just, you should do this. This is some practical stuff. So here's the theory, right? Here's how you turn that into practical action tomorrow or today that can help you in a way that can help you. But if anybody wants to get in touch with me, as you know, I'm always up for a chat. I'll talk for hours about any subject you like. I will give you my contact details, but website thinkgray.com with an A, THINKGRAY.com, because my name's Terry Gray with an A. Email address terry.gray@thinkgray.com. Phone number we'll put in the notes.
Excellent. And I will just precursor there for anyone who wants to reach out to Terry. This is not for the faint-hearted. This is for people that actually want to make a difference and change for themselves. And I'm talking about a couple of sessions I had with Terry 9 years ago, and they still leave an impact on myself and several other people that had those sessions. And we're not alone. I've heard it from other people that have worked with Terry as well. Thank you so much for your time today, mate. And I look forward to catching up with you soon, and not 9 years later. We'll have to get together within the new year. Sounds good.
I will look forward to that. Thank you, Sean. It's been a pleasure.
For our audience today, thank you for joining us on the Trusted Agent podcast, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All the best. Bye.